Danny Phantom, one of the most unforgettable Nickelodeon heroes. He's not just a ghost-fighting teenager, he's the awkward kid next door who stumbled into greatness. Imagine Spider-Man, but with a spectral twist. A geek turned half-ghost and hero, navigating high school by day and the supernatural by night. Every new adventure pushes him further into the unknown, unlocking powers he never asked for and challenges he never imagined. So, let's take a look.
Also, feel free to like, share, and hit the bell. Also, comment below if you want me to look over any heroes.
Danny's origin isn't laid out in neat detail, yet the clues are there, hidden in his family, his friends, and the strange world he grew up in. His parents, Jack and Maddie, were ghost-obsessed long before Danny was born. Their eccentric experiments and relentless pursuit of the paranormal made them outsiders, often laughed at by the very community they wanted to protect. For Danny, this wasn't just background noise, it was the environment that shaped his childhood. Then there's Jazz, Danny's older sister, brilliant, ambitious, and determined to rise above her parents' odd reputation. She distanced herself from their ghost hunting obsession, embarrassed by their antics. She became fiercely protective of Danny, shielding him from the ridicule she knew too well. Meanwhile, Danny himself dreamed of something simple, fitting in, maybe becoming an astronaut someday. But he never shared his parents' passion, and that disconnect left him feeling insecure, even embarrassed about who he was. Surrounded by his scientist parents and his high-achieving sister, Danny often felt like the odd one out. He was also very clumsy, which earned him a reputation at school, and was even banned from handling lab equipment after too many incidents. These experiences chipped away at his confidence, but they also forged his character. Danny grew into someone humble, grounded. He's the kind of hero who doesn't chase glory. He just wants peace, normalcy, and a life free of chaos. Danny's origin story gains more depth in the second season when we learn that Sam Manson, one of his closest friends, was the one who encouraged him to step into the ghost portal. In many ways, she was the catalyst for him becoming a hero. Yet, like many teenagers who suddenly gain powers, Danny initially saw them as a curse, something that made him feel like a freak. Traditionally, superheroes are motivated by tragedy or a dramatic call to action. Danny, however, merely was stuck trying to find a purpose for the powers. But then when a ghost attacked and his friends were in danger, his protective nature kicked in. And since then, he knew what to do with his powers, and found a purpose for something that makes him unique in a good way. And from that point on, Danny embraced the role with pride. With Sam's strategic thinking and Tucker's technology prowess, the three of them formed a team dedicated to hunting ghosts. Backed by his friends, Danny carried far less stress and began to see the true value of being a hero. His powers were no longer a burden, but a responsibility he accepted wholeheartedly. Not everything Danny does with his powers is purely heroic, though. At times, he uses them to get back at his bullies like Dash. Him being just a teenage geek, it's natural that Danny experiments with his powers for personal gain. Labeled as a loser for most of his life and embarrassed by his eccentric parents, Danny feels motivated to finally flex the strength he has now. Dash constantly picks on Danny and the other outcasts to prove his superiority, even though deep down he knows his glory days are limited. With ghost powers, Danny can finally fight back, sometimes in self-defense, but other times with a touch of malice. He also tries to use his abilities to impress others, like Paulina, the popular girl at school. In one instance, he presents her with jewels taken from the ghost zone, hoping to win her attention. Sam often calls him out on these reckless choices, but Danny doesn't always listen. His immaturity and desires to fit in lead him into trouble more than once. Meanwhile, his parents remain too absorbed in their ghost hunting pursuits to provide Danny with guidance. Without strong role models, he is left to navigate the responsibilities of his powers largely on his own, stumbling, learning, and growing through trial and error. Danny's powers affect his personal life in profound ways. Like many teen heroes, his double life gives him a purpose, but it also comes with baggage that prevents him from living normally. Simple tasks like studying, making curfew, or keeping a consistent schedule become major challenges. In one instance, he tried to prepare for a makeup test only to be constantly interrupted by ghost attacks. Already insecure, these disruptions only added more stress. His powers themselves are another source of anxiety. They're often unpredictable, and Danny doesn't fully know how to control them. This lack of mastery leads to unintended consequences. Thankfully, his friends help him manage the chaos. Tucker and Sam step in to create schedules and strategies that allow Danny to balance schoolwork with ghost fighting, easing some of his stress and anxiety. Still, Danny struggles with self-esteem. Any situation that embarrasses him or makes him look bad cuts deep. While any chance to gain popularity tempts him, his friends support his heroics and help him grow, but their encouragement only goes so far. The real disciplinary forces in his life is his sister Jazz and his teacher Mr. Lancer. Jazz, just 2 years older, often sees herself as the adult in the family, embarrassed by her parents' ghost obsessions. She feels responsible for Danny and becomes overprotective. Mr. Lancer, meanwhile, is a strict, no-nonsense teacher. Though he sometimes has Danny's best interest at heart, he's often hard on him, especially when Danny's ghost-related problems spill into his school. At one point, Lancer even informs Danny's parents about his academic struggles, which only adds pressure. All of this makes Danny feel small and childish. In the episode Spectra, we see how deeply he struggles with balancing heroism, school, and self-worth. His pride convinces him that his life is harder than that of the average teen, and any criticism, being called lazy or a loser, hits him especially hard. This often drives him to seek shortcuts, easy answers, or quick ways to improve his social standing, even if it backfires. There's more to Danny's character than insecurity or self-doubt. He also demonstrates remarkable endurance and problem-solving skills, refusing to let challenges trap him. Even though he isn't the strongest or most experienced ghost fighter, often barely able to hold his own in direct combat, he never gives up, even when it means taking a beating. Importantly, Danny doesn't rely solely on raw power. He thinks strategically. For example, he once turned Skulker's own hunter suit against him, exploiting a flaw in its programming to track and defeat him. With Technus, Danny uses the villain's arrogance and dependence on technology to outsmart him. Against Desiree, he cleverly manipulated her rule of granting wishes to gain the upper hand. One of his most impressive victories came in the episode with Ember McLean. She was seemingly unstoppable thanks to fans chanting her name all over the world, but Ember was undone when Danny convinced Tucker to sing one of her songs, instantly turning the public support against her and weakening her power. Though Danny doesn't always have the highest opinion of himself, this humility works in his favor. He doesn't enter battles with ego or overconfidence. Having grown up feeling average and overlooked, he is used to surviving without status or skill, which makes him adaptable when faced with overwhelming odds. He relies on quick thinking and street-smart strategies to win. Another defining trait of Danny's heroism is his friendliness and empathy. Despite being an angsty teenage geek, Danny consistently shows kindness, not only to his friends and family, but even to his bullies and enemies. He rarely holds a grudge, which sets him apart from the prideful ghost villains he fights. Danny's empathy shines in everyday interactions. He's welcoming to new students, helps Tucker fix his mistakes, and even supports his hobbies, even listening to Tucker's more unusual ideas without dismissing them outright. With Sam, Danny often is bothered by her buzzkill attitude, but he still appreciates her perspective and participates in her interests. This willingness to meet his friends halfway may be why they remain loyal to him, even in life or death situations. His kindness extends to his family as well. When Jack Fenton is mocked by other ghost hunters, Danny defends him without hesitation. With Jazz, though he sometimes feels jealous of her and finds her overprotective nature tiring at times, he never tries to put her down. Instead, he works to help her understand him, and he's grateful when she supports him. And they're both protective of each other, which allows Jazz to trust that Danny's ghost fighting comes from a good place without pressuring him into revealing his secret. Danny's empathy reaches his rivals as well. In the Shrinking episode, when his powers start to weaken, he decides to work with Dash. Or on the first episode of Youngblood, he rallies support to save his classmates' parents during their fake cruise, proving he's even willing to help those who wronged him. Importantly, Danny always tries to fix his mistakes, taking responsibility when things go wrong. This attitude likely stems from his desire to please others. Growing up labeled uncool, bullied, or ignored, Danny knows what it feels like to be dismissed. That experience drives him to treat others with humility and respect, never acting superior. Some of the best examples of Danny's empathy lies with his relationship with Danielle Fenton and Valerie Gray. Vlad Plasmius, one of Danny Pham's rogues, was obsessed with creating the perfect half-ghost child. He uses Danny's DNA to engineer clones. Most of them are unstable, melting away quickly, but one clone survives, Danielle or Danny Phantom. Vlad intends to use her as bait to capture Danny and extract more stable DNA. Danny introduces herself as his cousin, and at first, Danny is suspicious. She has the same ghost powers as him, which makes her both impressive and irritating, and Danny initially treats her as a nuisance, unsure of her motives. Danielle is loyal to Vlad at first, believing he is her father. Vlad manipulates her, convincing her that she must help him capture Danny to prove her worth. Danielle follows orders, but her innocence and curiosity about Danny's life begins to conflict with Vlad's demands. When Danielle realizes that Vlad is using her and doesn't truly care about her survival, seeing her as disposable like the other failed clones, she turns against him. This betrayal is pivotal. Danielle chooses independence over blind loyalty. Danny recognizes that Danielle is not his enemy, but a victim of Vlad's manipulation. His empathy shines here. He understands her loneliness and fear of being discarded. By the end of the episode, Danielle breaks free from Vlad's control entirely. She chooses to stand with Danny, not because she has to, but because she wants to. Danny's compassion allows her to see herself as more than a tool. She becomes her own person. Their bond is sealed, and Danielle leaves Vlad behind. Valerie's story is more complicated. Originally a popular wealthy girl, she barely registered on Danny's radar until her life was ruined by a ghost incident. Danny sympathizes with her struggle. After Valerie became a ghost hunter determined to destroy him, Danny still refuses to harm her. Over time, the relationship evolved. During a school assignment, Danny was frustrated when Valerie dumped all the work on him, and he grew angry at her constant pursuit. But when he discovered she was working to pay for college and struggled with her own responsibilities, his perspective shifted. He even covered her shift at the Nasty Burger, showing his willingness to go the extra mile to make things right. This empathy allowed Danny and Valerie to connect on a deeper level. Instead of assuming his life was harder, Danny recognized that her life was hard too. That act of kindness earned him her respect, letting them see the good in each other. Now we arrive at one of Danny's most important dynamics, his rivalry with Vlad Plasmius, his arch-nemesis. Vlad represents the opposite path Danny could have taken. As a young man, Vlad was an awkward and unpopular nerd. His ghost powers came from an accident caused by his friend Jack Fenton. That accident ruined his social life, and in his words, destroyed his chance at love with Maddie Fenton. The trauma, combined with the visible effects of his powers, left him bitter. Unlike Danny, Vlad chose to use his abilities for selfish gain. He built immense wealth and success, but this only made him vain and greedy. Unlike Danny, Vlad had decades to master his ghost powers. He became one of the most powerful ghosts, easily capable of challenging Danny in a fair fight. His resentment towards Jack grew over the years, along with an obsession, one-sided crush on Maddie. Vlad convinced himself that the accident was the only reason he lost her, fueling his bitterness. When Vlad first meets Danny, he sees a reflection of himself, because Jack's invention caused both their transformations. Vlad believes he can mentor Danny and take him under his wing, but Danny remains loyal to his father, valuing family, affection, and moral integrity over fame and power. This loyalty sets him apart from Vlad. Both know each other's secret identities, which forces Vlad to operate in the shadows. He cannot expose Danny without risking his own double life. This secrecy challenges Vlad to rely on cunning and emotional manipulation rather than brute force. He exploits Danny's insecurities, but his twisted motives reveal his true desire: love. Vlad longs for a perfect ghost son and Maddie's affection, believing wealth could fill that void. His attempts to create clones highlight the difference between him and Danny. Vlad tries to force relationships, blaming the world when they fail. Danny, by contrast, constantly works to improve himself and build genuine connections. This contrast makes the rivalry not just a battle of power, but a clash of values: selfishness versus growth, bitterness versus resilience. Nowhere is Danny's struggle better illustrated than in Ultimate Enemy, one of the most iconic episodes of the series. It presents a chilling future where Danny becomes one of the most powerful and evil ghosts in existence. This all begins with a test assigned by Mr. Lancer, a single exam meant to determine Danny's future. For a freshman, the idea that one test could define everything is already overwhelming. With Danny, however, he knows his grades aren't great, and he feels overshadowed by Jazz, who aces the test with ease. On top of that, he is constantly pulled away from schoolwork to fight ghosts. The pressure builds until Clockwork, the Ghost Master of Time, slips Danny the test answers, silently wondering if he will make the right choice. But Danny caves under the weight of expectation, and he decides to cheat. This one decision sets off a devastating chain of events. The butterfly effect leads to the death of his friends, family, and even Mr. Lancer, the people who were his foundation, the ones who kept him grounded. With no one left, Danny turns to Vlad for help. He asks Vlad to remove his human emotions, but instead Vlad strips away his ghost half. The two halves merge, creating Dark Danny, a monstrous fusion of Danny's corrupted ghost side and Vlad's bitterness. Danny's human self is destroyed, leaving behind a cynical, power-hungry force of destruction. What this reveals is how fragile Danny's sense of self truly is. He already struggles with insecurity and accidents, often doubting his worth. His family and friends are what keep him moving forward. Without them, and burdened by the guilt of cheating, he feels useless, bitter, and desperate to erase his emotions. That desperation corrupts his ghost half, twisting it into something that values only power. Fused with Vlad's darkness, it amplified his rage into a destructive force of nature. But Clockwork anticipated this outcome. Through a series of trials, he gives Danny the chance to confront his future self. With the help of a time medallion, Danny learns how to resist corruption. He even masters the ghostly wail before Dark Danny ever could. Armed with this strength, he returns to stop his future self, and he succeeds. In the end, Clockwork restores Danny's loved ones and offers him a second chance. Danny chooses honesty, turning in the test answers and admitting his mistake. He realizes that no grade, no tests, and no future could ever be worse than the nightmare he saw. What matters most is staying true to himself, his morals, and the people he loves. The final episode, Phantom Planet, remains controversial for many reasons, but is worth unpacking as the conclusion to Danny's story. In this episode, Danny suddenly finds himself overshadowed by the Master's Blasters, a flashy ghost fighting team that battles for profit rather than principle. Their presence makes Danny look weak and irrelevant, feeding into his insecurities and leaving him feeling replaced. Worse, his family is put in danger, and the joy he once found in being a hero begins to fade. In a reckless decision, Danny chooses to give up his ghost powers, hoping to live a normal life. His friends reject this choice, and while Danny initially enjoys the simplicity of being human again, reality quickly catches up. When the situation grows dire, he realizes he cannot ignore his responsibility. Danny eventually teams up with the ghosts once more, and in the chaos, he is blasted, regaining his powers in the process. With his abilities restored, he devises a daring plan to make the entire Earth intangible, saving it from destruction. In doing so, Danny's secret identity is revealed to the world. For the first time, Danny is recognized not just by his friends and family, but by humanity as a whole. He becomes a global hero, his journey coming full circle. What began as insecurity and isolation ends with acceptance and validation. And that was Danny Phantom, an ordinary kid who became extraordinary. What began with insecurity and clumsy mistakes grew into resilience, empathy, and integrity. In the end, Danny isn't defined by his ghost powers, he's defined by his heart. A hero that proves true strength comes not from fame or force, but from compassion, loyalty, and the courage to keep going. Thanks for watching.